So we're on the top of Daf Chav Gimel Amid Beis, up to the new Mishnah for the new week. Misha Kidesh Achas Mishtei Achios V'Yodea Ezo Mehen Kidesh. Very weird situation where a man gave Kiddushin, maybe through a shliach it's possible, I don't know, to one of two sisters, which means that one of these two ladies is an erva to him. The other is his wife. Now, if he would consummate the marriage with one of these two, it may actually turn out that that's an erva. So he can't allow himself that luxury. And therefore, the Mishnah Paskins no say get lazu, the get lazu. Each one is really a suffix, whether it's his wife. And on the other hand, each one is a suffix whether he's allowed to have a relationship with her, because she may be a chos ishta. He therefore has no choice but to give a get to each one of them. But then we're going to take it to another level about yibum. And if this person who got himself into this mixture, this mix-up, dies, what happens as far as these two ladies are concerned? They both Yevamot. I mean, one of them is definitely Yevamot. We don't know which one. That's the problem. Now, in the footnote here, he mentions in the name of the Tosos Yantiv that we can expand the application of this Mishnah to a case of Isha Ubita or Erva Acheres. In other words, let's say you have twins. They're sisters, right? So that, again, I wouldn't say it's so common, but it's possible that with Rachel and Leah, you can make a mistake. So that's why the Mishnah mentions Rachel and Leah, two sisters. But the truth is, says Tos Yantiv, the identical laws will govern a case of each obita. That's not very shchiach. Who did you marry? The mother or the daughter? But in any case where there are two women that he married, one of them, we don't know which one he married, and one of them is an erva, whatever that erva is, you can go down the whole list, the enumerated list of arayas, then the laws of our Mishnah would govern those cases as well. And the Mishnah is only talking about two sisters because that's more, again, I wouldn't say common, but relatively feasible. That's such a bilbul will actually become a reality. Now, Mace, so the Makadish who married one of two sisters died, v'lo ach echad. Okay, well, later on we're going to see what happens if he has two brothers. But right now he only has one brother. So these two sisters fall for Yibum, Misafek, and in truth, only one of them really falls for Yibum, because only one was married to his late brother, but we don't know which one. Is therefore Cholitz L'Shteya. And now we have to just answer the following question. We understand why both need Chalitza, but why is there no possibility that he could be Miyabe one of them? And the answer is because any one of them that he chooses to be Miyabe might not be Eishes Achir, but rather she would be Achos Eishes Aviv. Right? She's not the wife of his late brother, but rather she is the sister of the wife of his late brother. And that's called Achos Zikukaso, which I think we've discussed in the past. It's a D'Rabbanan, and it's also to marry Achos Ukasa, because we look at it as if it's Achos Ishto, right? Because Zika is like a mixus Ishus. Now the question arises, why can't he, there's only one brother, surviving brother, why can't he give Chalitza first to one of them, and then be miyabed the shnia? Let's just think about that. And he gave Chalitza to one of them, so she's okay. She's now the other one is Mimonashah. Either she is what? His wife, So then certainly Yibum's not. And if it's not his wife, on the side, she is not his wife, and she's achos kukos. Let's see if I got that right. Einu yochel lachlotz kodem liachas v'achach liyamis hashniya mishum she'im harishona shechol etzlo hoisa eshes achiv arei hashniya hi achos chalutzoso shegam hi asura ol. Okay. Apparently, there's a Mishnah later on about achos. But I think, if I'm not mistaken, please correct me if I'm wrong, achos chalutzos is very, very similar to achos kukos. Next. Now, he has the deceased, who was the Makadish of one or two sisters, has two surviving brothers. And now the Mishnah addresses the possibility of Yibum. Why? Because Echad Choletz, one of the two brothers will give Chalitza to one of the two sisters. And now we can apply the following logic. If the sister that received Chalitza is really the sister that was married to the late brother, then a Zikas Yibum is removed through this Chalitza. And at that point, B'monavshach, the other brother, the other sprite, so we have Ruvain and now we have Shimon and Levi. Shimon gave Chalitza to one of the two sisters. And now, Levi B'monavshach could be Miyabim, the other sister. Why? Why is there no chash of achos kukaso? And here we get to a principle that we've mentioned in the past called hafkas hazika. You remember that principle? So let's say we have Leah and Rachel. So Leah got the chalitza. And you're going to tell me now that Rachel is achos kukaso. No. That Zika is history. It's completely gone by chalitza. The chalitza removes the Zika. Okay. But the Mishnah says, let's say the brothers didn't do it exactly in that order. First, Shimon gave chalitza to Leah, but rather Kodmu v'Kansu. Let's say that Shimon went ahead and he married Leah, and Levi went ahead and he married Rachel, Leah's younger sister. Now, we really should be busting up these marriages, because each one of these marriages is safek achos kukasa, right? Again, there was no chalitza to be mafkir the zika, so each one could be possibly achos kukasa. She might not be anything, right? She's just a zar. So the Mishnah's machadish ein motziin miyadam. We're going to allow these marriages to continue, which means there's no kfir, we don't force them to be megarish. And why is that so? I'm going to read to you the footnote here. He says, Kol echad mehem yochel lomar ha'isha shani kanasti hi eshes achi v'ani miyad ben adin. Each one has a right to say that again, there's a contradiction between both their arguments, both their claims, that of Shimon and Levi, but each one individually, Shimon himself or Levi himself, can claim that this woman, whether it be Leah or whether it be Rachel, is the Yevamot of my brother. So each one has sort of like a defense claim to justify his marriage by saying this was evil. Now, wait a second. Who are you fooling? You might be, we'll talk to Shimon, for example, you might be married now to Achos Kukasam. So the Chiddush of the Mishnah is that just like Halita is Mafkia Zika, so too the marriage itself is Mafkia Zika. So Ata now, this is what you call, changing the facts on the ground. He already established a Yibum, that means Levi was Miyavim Rachel, is Kvarpaka Mimena Zikasa L'Rishon. In other words, what's the problem and the chash to allow the marriage between Shimon and Leah to continue? Leah might be the sister of Skukaso, meaning it could be that the late Reuven was married, in fact, to Rachel, and Rachel was a Skuka. And now Leah becomes a Achos Kukasa. So how can we allow the marriage of Shimon to Leah to continue? But the answer is that now that Levi has married Rachel, that Zika is completely gone. So again, if they would have come to Bezdin, April, right, initially, then Bezdin would have not been allowed to change the facts on the ground, because right now each one is Safek Achos Kukasa. They took the initiative and they changed the facts on the ground such that it's no longer Achos Kukasa, because the marriage itself is Mafkia the Zikasi. Next, now life becomes even more complicated. Shnaim shikitchu shtei achyos ze en yodea ezo kiddush ze en yodea ezo kiddush. The two brothers. No, I'm sorry. We get to two brothers later. Two men. Initially, it was one man that married two sisters. He doesn't know which of the two. Now there are two men. Each one married one of the two sisters. We don't know which one married which sister. So again, the names are still Reuven and Shimon, but it's not Reuven and Shimon that are brothers. Reuven and Shimon are not brothers, and they were Makadesh, two sisters, Leah, respectively, Leah and Rachel. So let's just think about this. Each one of these two sisters might be Achos Ishto. So Pashas that they would both have to divorce both of them. Right? Zenos and Shnei Gitin, the Zenos and Shnei Gitin. So far, so good. Mason. Now, these two men that married these two women, who are sisters, died. Again, they're two friend, not related men. They both died. I would say stay away from this family. Okay, they both died. Laze'ach v'laze'ach. Okay. So each one of these two, Reuven and Shimon, have a brother, respectively. Let's just think. If each one of these two has a brother, and these two died, each one of these sisters is a Masechet Yevamot, Masechet Achos Kukas. L'chora, they should both give chalitza to both. Let's see if I'm right. Good. We're doing all right. Because each one is a Masechet of Achos Kukas. Now, Lozeh Echad, the Lozeh Shnayim. So Reuven, let's say, has one brother. Shimon has two brothers. So the one brother of Shimon is Choletz L'Shtein. Now, at that point, as far as Zikas Yibum to the brother of Shimon, once Shimon gave chalitza to both these sisters, he has removed the status of Zika. He has removed the Zika. Okay, now we get to the two brothers of Levi. Vashnayim is Echad Choletz, the Echad Miyav. Basically, this is an application of the original psak, the ruling of our Mishnah, in the case of a man who marries one of two sisters and he has two brothers. Right? You remember that in the case of two brothers, we required a certain sequence. First, let one brother give them chalitza, and that's going to remove the zika, and then the other one be manafsha. Either he's being miyabein, his eishes ach, or she's not related to him at all, and the zika is gone. But what happens if kadmu v'kansu ein motzim biyad? Next. Each one of the two Makadshim, who are not related, but each one has two brothers. Achiv shel zeh. So let's start with Shimon. Shimon, one of Shimon's two brothers, he has two brothers. Choletz li'achas. Just 1 second. Achiv shel zeh, choletz li'achas, v'achiv shel zeh, choletz li'achas, and then the second brother of each one of them, achiv shel zeh, miyab chalutzaso shel zeh, achiv shel zeh, miyab chalutzaso shel zeh. So again, we're operating with the principle that chalitza removes the zika, and therefore clears the path for the other sister by removing fiyibum, by removing the chashash of achos kukas. So again, let's go over this. So that achiv shel zeh choletz the achas, achiv shel zeh miyabem chalutzaso shel zeh. 1 second. What's the significance here of the fact that there are two how many Makadshim are there? We're talking about one Makadish or two Makadshim?
This where they each have two brothers?
Each of the two Makadshim has two brothers? Each of the two Makadshim has two brothers. Right? Now, what do we have to worry about? Could be achos kaso. So we're going to require chalitza. One of the brothers is going to give chalitza. Just trying to figure out, are we requiring now that the second brother, the miyabim, wait a minute, let me just read the note here. He says, Chalutzoso shel zes osa hachos sha'ach shel makadish hasheni shel makadish hasheni cholav in imzui achos eshes achiv miyab min adin ein lo ein zu achos eshes achiv ela eshes makadish hasheni Kfar pokas zikasa kivan shecholetz lo echad mi echad. Reish Chav Dalet. Just see. Lozeh shnayim. Ochav shel zeh choletz liachas. The echav shel zeh choletz liachas. Ochav shel zeh miyam chalutzos. Ochav shel zeh miyam chalutzos shel zeh. It shouldn't be too complicated, but let's go through it. He says Moshe, Aaron, Velazar, Achim. Okay, because we said there are two Achim that survived the death of one of their brothers. So wait a minute, where is Moshe, Aaron, Velazar? Moshe, Aaron, Velazar. Okay, fine. Reuven, Shimon, Levi, Achim. So we have, it seems like we have two sets. Maybe am I jumping the gun here? No. And we have two sets of three brothers each. So we've got Moshe, Aaron, Velazar, and we have Reuven, Shimon, Levi. Kidesh Moshe, Achas Mishtei Achios Rachel V'Leah, Yeni Yodea Ezem Kiddush. Chen Reuven, who's not a brother to Moshe, Kidesh Es Hashniya Me'osan Achos. The Eno Yodua Ezohi. Mesu Moshe the Reuven below Banim. The Nafla Etamehem was Nea Achim Liyibu. So Rachel falls to Yibu. Moshe and Reuven died, and their respective wives. But again, each one of these two women, Rachel could be their wife. Okay. Now, Ray Aaron, Achiv Shel Moshe, Choletz Liachas. Let's say he gives chalitza to Rachel. Shimon, Achiv Shel Reuven, Choletz Liachas Leah. Achaka, Elazar, Right, so Aaron gave chalitza. Is Elazar achiv shel Aaron biyavim es Leah. Chalitzos Shimon. Right, so what did we say? We said that Shimon gave chalitza to Leah. Did I get that right? Okay, so Shimon gave chalitza to Leah. And now Elazar would be miyavim Leah. One of them. Imi Ashes Achiv. So if Elazar is miyavim Leah, she might be the sister of his late brother Moshe. That's good. Let's say that Leah is not Ashes Moshe, but rather Ashes Reuven. Arei kvar choletz la Yevamot Shimon. So on the side that she is the sister, I'm saying the wife of his brother, then she got Yibum. Okay. Next, Kadmu Shnayim V'choltzu. So let's say one of the brothers who died has two brothers, and they both gave chalitza to Rachel Leah. Then lo yiyavnu hashnayim. Right. So there's another makadesh. I guess we said it was Ruvain, whatever, and the two brothers of Ruvain, that was Shimon and Levi, should not be miyavim. The other wife, the other sister, I should say. Why? Because she might be a chos gosa. Ela echad choletz the echad miyavim because who ain't motzim biyom. Okay. So yeah. Say it a little louder. Maybe it's fine.
How is she allowed to marry if she really didn't?
Which part of the Mishnah are you talking about? Kadmu v'kansu?
Yeah. Okay. I take it back.
Okay. So let's see. The Gemara says that the whole Mishnah is predicated on one premise, which is very questionable. That when a man marries two women and they're sisters, and he doesn't know which one of the sisters he married, and in such a case, he's married to one of the two sisters. We don't know which one. Now that's going to be machlokas Abai v'Rava. That's called kiddushin she'ena mesurim l'biyah. Why is it ena mesurim l'biyah? Because if he has biyah with either one of them, it might be achos ishta. So there's something inherent in his ma'aseh kiddushin which is possible, according to one opinion, because it's ena mesurim l'biyah. And that's one of Yal Kagam. That's one of the 6 cases where we pass like a Abai against Rav. And our Mishnah is a pretty clear proof to support Abai's opinion that Kedusha Sheina Mesur would be a Hava Kedusha. Rav rejects it. Rav says if you marry one or two sisters, that's not Kedushin at all. It doesn't even get off the ground. It's not valid. So the Gemara now wants to reject this proof to support Abai. Hachamaya skinon isha hukru ulabasof nisarvu. At the time of the Kedusha, we knew exactly which woman he was Makadesh. Later on, we got confused. We can't find her because we forgot who she is or because they're so similar. In this case, even Rava would agree that the Kiddushin are valid because at the time of the Masechet Kiddushin, the Psul of Eina Mesur Leviah is a Psul of the Masechet Kiddushin. Here it was Mesur Leviah at the time of the Kiddushin. It became Eina Mesur Leviah subsequent because of the mix-up, but not at the time of the Kiddushin. So l'chora, this is a big docha, to say that our Mishnah is talking about a case of Hokru Ulabasof Nisaru, or says Dekanami. I'm going to prove it to you from the Mishnah. The Ketani, it says the Mishnah Misha Kiddush Achas, the Eina Yodea, Ezemen Kiddush. It should have said the Eina Yodua, Ezemehen Kiddush. Right? If we're talking about the Kiddushin itself, we don't know which of the two women he was Makadesh. We have no testimony. But when it says Eina Yodea, not Eina Yodua, so the Vav comes before the Dalet, not afterwards, then it means he doesn't know which one he was Makadesh. He knew which one he wanted him to Makadesh, but now he's confused. So B'tchila lo haya safek is Mishum Makadesh. And therefore the Mishnah says, Eino Yodea. Now he doesn't know. If the Mishnah meant that it was never ever clear from the get-go which one he was Makadesh, that would be Eino Yodua. I'm just thinking out loud, what would be a case, Machlokas Abai v'Rav, of Eino Yodua? I guess he says, I'm being Makadesh, one of you two, but he doesn't specify who's being Makadesh. That's my guess. So the Gemara now wants to know if you're going with Rava's opinion, and therefore our Mishnah must be talking about a case where we knew at the time of the Kedusha which one he was Makadesh, the Suffolk was born subsequently, then Micah Mashma. And the Mishnah opens up by telling you he has to give a get to each one of them. Well, that's for sure true. We don't know which one of two women he was Makadesh. He has to give a get to both. What's the chiddush of the Mishnah? Now, the Gemara at this point is isolating the opening line in the Mishnah with the psak of no say get lazu v'lazu, as if to say we have to find the chiddush in that phrase. I mean, that phrase is just an introduction to an entire Mishnah. The Gemara says Sefer Yitzchak. You're right. The original statement and ruling that he has to give a get to both of them, that's not discovering anything new. But what about the second bit, which says Meis below Ach Echad? If he dies and he has one brother, Cholitz l'shteya, Oylo Shnayim, Echad Cholitz v'Echad Miyabed. Here's where there's a chiddush in our Mishnah, Dafka Michlitz. The Hadar Yibume. The sequence is critical. First, give Chalitza. No, there are two brothers now, right? There's Shimon and Levi. So one of the two brothers, we'll call him Shimon. He should first give Yibum to one of these two sisters, V'Hadar Yibum, and then Levi could be Mi'abim, the other sister. Avol, but if you turn it around the other way around, Yibume Bereisha, that one of the brothers will be miyabim before the other brother's cholis, the second one. Lo, the kapaga b'chos kukas. Again, what will be the evidence if he did such a thing is a different story. But to teach us that if all things are ideal and the two brothers come to ask us what they should do, we will mandate that they follow a certain particular sequence in which first one brother will give chalitza to one of the sisters, and then there'll be yibum. But at this point, we cannot be mata yibum first because she might be achos kukas. After the chalitza removes the status of achos kukas. The Mishnah says, "Shnaim shekitzu shtei achios." Once again, the Gemara goes through the same shakavitarya as we did in the Reisha. Shmamina kiddushin shenim esum lebia kiddushin. We should support Abaye. Achanami here tuksha hukru lebasof nisarvu. So the suffix was not in the Shas Kedushin, the suffix was subsequent to Shas. So since for Shas Kedushin there was no suffix, it's Kedushin HaMesurim would be, and then even Rava would validate the Kedushin. Aikanami diktoni v'ein yodea, v'lo ktoni v'ein yodua. Shma mino. Again, the Gemara is going to ask, Umay kamashmalon. What is the Chiddush? So in other words, if we're not coming lafuke rava of Kiddush Shein Mesur Bia Lav Shmei Kiddusha, so what exactly is the Chiddush? Seifa Yitzur. This is an introduction to the Seifa, and that's what the Tana wanted to teach us. Mesu, if you have two men that married two sisters, and they died, lazeh echad v'lazeh shnayim. One of them has a single brother, the other has two brothers. It's hayachid choletz l'shtehen. So the one who has only one brother will give chalitza to both of them. V'ashnayim echad choletz v'echad miyam. Gemara thinks pshita and reisha. That again is just another scenario, but you're again applying the same principle, just in a different scenario. I mean, in the Reisha, we had a case where he used Makai Shtei Achios V'Safek, and he has two brothers, one is Cholis, one is Miyab. So why shouldn't the same principle apply here in a case where he has one of them has a brother, the other has two brothers? More answers. Mao did Tamo. If not for the Mishnah, we would have thought that in this case, that there's a third, right? There's another Makadish that has one brother, and that brother is going to be Cholet Shteyan. Therefore, we should introduce the Gzeira in this Hava, meaning before the Mishnah's Chiddush. Ligs are Treo to Chad. We should not allow the two brothers of the second Makadish to be Miyabim, meaning Echad Cholet Sefer Miyabim. Both of them should require Chalitz. And that's going to be Gzeira Otuchad. He explains the Gzeira here in the note. He says, Yovo gam ha'ach ha'yochid shel ha'makadesh, shel ha'makadesh ha'acher, liyabim is achas min ha'achis. So if you can allow the brother of one of these two deceased to be miyabim, then the other brother might think that he can be miyabim the other group. Follow Olav who also be suffix Shema Yibem Esachos Skukos. Mashmalan. So he tells me the Tana doesn't accept this Xera, and even in this case of Shnei Achim, Echad Choletz, right, that one of the deceased has two brothers, Echad Choletz v'Echad B'Yam. And furthermore, the Tana wants to teach me Dafka Michlitz v'Hada Yibumi Avli Yibun B'Reisha Lo Dekapaga B'Yavam Elashuk. Okay, let's just see if we have something here in the Yalkut Biurim of Gimel on the page. I was hoping there would be something here. Let's take a look at the end, the last two lines on Lamed Vav, going on to Lamed Zayid. Shmamino Kiddushin Sheina Mesum Labia Havi Kiddushin. Ikshar Ritva. Madua Eina Kiddushin Echshavim Kimesurim Labia. For a Kevon Sha'omar Sha'achas Mehen Tia Mekudeshes. In other words, the Ritva understands that he made a general statement. I'm marrying one of these two sisters. Yachal Achakach, later on, he could be Mavarer, Li'eza Isha Kiddush. In other words, the Ritva says this is not the case, the classic Machlokas Abai v'Rav. This is a case of biru, of brera. Brera means he's allowing himself to choose later on, but it works l'mafreya, which of these two sisters he wants to be Makadesh. But once, if you hold Yesh Brera, at least, once he chooses later on which of these two sisters, then that was the sister that from the get-go, l'mafreya, he was Makadesh, and therefore even Rav would agree that's supposed to be Chanam Asurim L'Biyah. I would doubt whether that makes it into Kedushin Asurim L'Biyah. Plus, you have another issue. I don't know whether we hold Yesh Brera or not. But let's just see how the Ritva develops this. Abai v'Rav ha'cholkim b'din Kedushin She'enim Asurim L'Biyah shneim sovrim sheyesh brera. The Ritva is using his scholarship here. I don't know which sugi he's referring to, maybe Erev, I don't know which Masechta. And he's going to prove that both Abai and Rava agree that Yesh Brera. I'm trying to figure out, I hope we'll get some clarification. So according to the Ritva, if both Abai and Rava hold Yesh Brera, which means that we're Mevalim Afre. So when does Rava disqualify the Kedushin? What is the scenario of Kedushin She'ena Mesurim L'Biyah? We figure that out? I got it. Sorry. He says that I will marry. What does he say exactly? I will marry the one that I will choose. But I want to marry any one of them. I know it sounds weird, but let's just try to throw this out as a possibility. One of these two ladies is going to be my wife. Which one? So if he says, I'll tell you tomorrow, then that's Yesh Breira. And basically what he's saying was, I'm allowing myself a little bit of a period of time to fill in the blanks and specify which of the two systems. But he says, no, I don't know which one of them I want. And I won't know today, I won't know tomorrow. He just says, give me one of these two girls for a wife, one of these two sisters. So Rava disqualifies such condition. And Abai says, no, he's in a suffix situation. We don't know which one he's married to, but one of them he's married. That's what I think is going on. So again, we're back to the Kasha of the Ritva. The Ritva is asking, why is it that this issue of I will tell you tomorrow which one of the two I want to marry should be dependent on the Machlokas Abai and Rav? Even Rav holds Yesh Breira. So it should be valid. So he gives two answers. One answer is Medubar kan kasher lo bire. He never went, followed through and clarified. Kigon shlonitan levar mishum shetol sabir b'das acherim behem enam lefanim. Like he says, I'm going to be married to one of these two, and her father will give the approval with what he'll choose which one. So Breira only means if I allow myself to make the choice. If I make it depend on someone else's decision, his will determine my action. That's called Ein Breira. So Nitan Levarer Davar Shetola B'das Acherim. Okay, now he gives the second answer. Medubar Shelo Tolas Hadavar B'Breira Shelo Omar Ezu She'ertza Tia Mekudeshes. Maybe in the footnote will clarify this. No. It just says he doesn't say Li'eza She'ertza Tia Mekudeshes. So what does he say? Li'eza She'ertza. I'm going to be married to one of them, period. He uses a very generic, very ambiguous language, I guess. I mean, he doesn't spell that out. I'm just trying to fill in the blanks. So now we have a kasha the Avnei Malun. Halo matzinu shegam ofen she'ein masne sheyeh chalos tluya b'breira gam kein shayach b'breira. What was the Ritva's second answer? That he didn't say, well, I'll make a decision. I'll make a choice tomorrow. Says the Avnei Malun, I'm going to prove to you from a Gemara in Masechet Yevamot that even if he didn't say, I'm going to choose it tomorrow, it still depends upon Breira. And for this, we have to learn a little bit of Masechet Kinin. Yasimu bod mei kine chova. Umishum shema yomos echad me'anoshim shesamu shamos k'dei she'akrivu avuram nimtza she'efshel lahakriv mikol amos mishum shemuravim bahem mos shalkatos shemesu ba'aleh she'en la'akriva. Wow, he's really throwing us into this sugya here. Let's see. So you have, if I understand correctly, you have Mos that are collected in one pot, in one like Trumas Halishka, one community chest, some of which is Nidava, but let's say Ruvain has a Chiv Chatos. So that if you take his money, for the purpose of bringing a Karban Chatos on his behalf, then there might be a tarovis. Maybe his monies will get mixed up with the other monies, and therefore Yefshel HaHakri Mikol HaMos, he can't be makri of anything from all the mos. So I guess we don't know who the Bailam are. We can't identify the Bailam of these modes because all the modes got mixed up. Not sure why does he call it Mesu Balel. He writes in the note, Hachashashu Kasher Yadua Shemes. Which I think means that the Baal Chova, the Baal Karban Chova died. Which means that the status of that Chatos is Chatos Shemesu Balel. Maksha Gemara al Kash. Adayin nita litol domim keneged aschum shesam oso adam lezarka. Rode into the Dead Sea. The Shara Mosi Mutaros in Brera. The Hainu Shemi din Brera no Omer Shamosh Izuku Einon Ma'osav Shel Ha'odam Shemes. Muchach mikach, the Shayach din Brera gam kashelos Avein Ha'odam b'shas Sha'osas Ha'mais Barer al Yedei din Brera. When the person dedicated the money, the Dmei Kine Chova, he didn't have in mind at that moment that Brera will clarify exactly his mice. So Shebi Yovos Echad Me HaNoshim Shesamu Shamos Yidei She'akrivu Avuram Nimtzi Efshel HaHakar Mikol HaMos Shemurav B'hem Mos Shel Hatav. Okay, so what I would like to do is let's see the Ritva's next end. A Ritva tiritz od al kushasa maduei nechshav makidushin kemesurim lebia mitzad breira shaladas asover shekidushin shein mesurim lebia edam kedushin. That's Rava. Hainu afilu im sha'achas. Oh, that's what I feel. Sha'achas ena mesurim lebia. Now it's true that you can clarify the suffix lemafreya through breira yel yesh breira, but you cannot deny that at that moment in time before the breira, he's not allowed to have bia because we don't know which breira he's going to. and he might be marrying the sister of his wife. Shalidas hasoveres shetzarch shiu kedusha misurim lebia hu migzeres hakotsu v'kein tzarch shiu misurim lebia mitchilasan b'shas l'yichah. That's I think a better way of going. Do you hear what he's saying? He's saying even if you hold yesh prera, and that's difference will be clarified l'ma freya, but nevertheless, before the clarification takes place, it's not mosul l'bia.
So the via is not the clarification. Yeah.
No, I'm asking before the bia, is he allowed to have bia with? Right now, he has left it up in the air. So right now, we're going to have to say to him, look, if the brera didn't happen yet, then you cannot have a relationship with either one of them because each one is a suffix achos ishto. So what are you saying, Steve? You're saying that.
So in that, before he died, he wouldn't have known. But once he has the deal with one of them, wouldn't that be his das? That was Brera?
Could be, but the Kiddushin themselves not generate a heter bia. Why? Because as long as there's a moment of ambiguity, there's an Isur bia. And that Isur bia will prevent the Chalos Kiddushin for the validity of the Kiddushin. Now he quotes a Tosus here, Dafka kasher Isur bia nigra machmas ha-Kiddushin, echshav ma-Kiddushin einam ru'uyim l'bia. Ach lo kasher Isur bia haya od kodem ha-Kiddushin. So I'm not sure exactly what he means here. He says, "B'kach tirtzu madua b'chayve lavin tosin hakiddushin." Oh, what does it mean? Kiddushin tosin b'chayve lavin? It's ain't a ruim l'bia. It's an excellent kasha. Shezeh mishum sheb'chayve lavin isra biu af kodem hakiddushin. So when do we say Kiddushin Shein Mesurim L'Bia Lo Havin Kiddushin according to Rava? That's only if the Isur Bia is a result of the Kiddushin, but not a pre-existing Isur. Now he quotes Rabbi Chana, Shemaisa Kiddushin Tzarch Lios Maisa Gorem Kurva, Behechashu Gorem Richut, Havechisarim B'Maisa Kiddushin. Mash ein kenem ma'akiv shalabia hu lo beglal hakiddushin ein zeh chisaron b'mais hakiddushin. Again, Rabbi Khan is pointing out that Kiddushin Shein Mesurim L'Bia is a psul in the Maisa Kiddushin. Because the Maisa Kiddushin, instead of generating a Heter Bia, it generated an Isur Bia. But if there was an Isur Bia, regardless or irrelevant, preceding the Maisa Kiddushin, that's not a psul in the Maisa Kiddushin. Now he has the case of Machzir Gushaso. What's Machzir Grushaso? Well, v'lo kiddush ain't a lokin. In Kei Nimtza Sha'isuru Machmas HaKiddushin. So again, amongst the Chayvei Lav, you could have Machzir Grushaso, I guess the Achash and says, and Baal v'lo kiddush ain't a lokin. if he had Kiddushin, then he would get Malchus. Why? Why is the Kiddushin valid? In other words, the Kiddushin themselves right? If he would have had beer with her, he would not get Malchus. He gets Malchus only because of the Kiddushin. So you see that what generates the Isur? It's the Kiddushin. I mean, that might just be a din in Onch. I don't know. But anyway, he's learning that's a din in the Etzema Isur, that you need the Kiddushin. So therefore, inherent in the Kiddushin, it generates the Isur of Machzik Gushasa. And therefore, we should apply the principle of Rava that is Kiddushin Shein Nisar Levia, because whenever the Kiddushin generate the Isur, that's called Kiddushin Shein Nisar Levia. So why is it that if a person is Makadesh Machzik Gushasa, that the Kiddushin is valid because Kiddushin Tosa B'Chayv Lav, it should be Kiddushin Shein Nisar Levia. So in other words, Rabbi Kivega is saying here that you get away with it in the case of, let's say, he was Makadesh among Zeretz. Okay, so that would be Kiddushin HaMesurim L'Biyah, because the Isur came before the Kiddushin. But in the case of Machzik Gushasa, since the halacha is Baal V'lo Kiddush and Eloka, it means the Isur is generated by the Kiddushin, and then we should apply the principle of Kiddushin She'eino Mesurim L'Biyah. Okay, then, so let's just we get up to here. This. And let's want to make sure I made a note of it here in the Gemara. Where do we get up to? Chav Gimel Amid Beis. Wait, tell me where we stop. It's on Chav Gimel Amid Beis, right? And we're up to Lazeh Shnayim v'Lazeh Shnayim.